Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be looking a little bit at some really sweet pre-modern decks. Uh, another, I think this is the Premodern Championship. There's like a whole bunch of people. It's very cool and neat, and yeah. So let's get looking at the top 16 of this very sweet tournament. All right. First off, we have Sly, and this is just Sly. Very stock bobble Sly list. Sideboard, nothing too weird. Yeah, it looks all about right. I do like volcanic hammer over like a shock variant. Typically, I mean, again, I'm not a huge fan of shock, but um, it doesn't feel like you can just. It's better to have higher card quality in some matchups. So I like hammer, 1 or 2 hammer, instead of like, you know, shock 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever, you know. So yep. But yeah, this is a very typical list. Nothing too crazy here. All right, and now we have the rock. And again, same thing, same thing. I like this list. Got the Dust Bowls, Dress Therapies, all this good stuff. Got a Naturalized main deck again. Very good against a lot of decks that have a ton of enchantments or artifacts, right? Pretty sweet. Of course, we see all sorts of cool cards. Sideboard, yeah, same thing. Um, yeah, real good stuff here. Nothing too wonky. And of course, we got the guy's blessing against, you know, the storm decks, as well as haunting echoes just against random things. You know, Spike Feeder, Genesis, great against mid-range stuff. So yeah, pretty sweet stuff going on here. All right, now this one's a little spicy. We have a white-black tax rack deck, and this one, of course, has zombie infestation. Very sweet. So squee plus zombie infestation is like 2 zombies a turn if you have 4 of them or whatever, or just like a zombie a turn with just a squee plus your draw step. Um, as well as land tax works very well with zombie infestation, and of course solitary confinement works extremely well with squee and land tax. So a lot of really cool stuff here. Pretty sweet deck. Got Duress and Armageddon as some excellent disruption, as well as Swords to Plowshares, of course, Enlightened Tutor, Winter Orb, Zurin Orb, Scroll Rack, Mox Diamond. Like these are things you'll sort of see in a lot of these tax rack decks. I mean, Winter Orb and Armageddon, especially because Zombie Infestation doesn't cost any mana to activate it, as well as Squee returning to your hand, or anything like Phyrexian Arena and so on and so forth. Like, so yeah, something like Winter Orb is a little bit better. The only thing I don't like is the random fetch lands. Like, just play something else, more basics. Like, there's no reason to take damage from these lands. Just play like Gemstone Mine or something. I mean, this is not good. Not good here. There's not really any reason for them. But the rest is pretty good, pretty sweet, and definitely an interesting take on the tax rack archetype. All right, and now we have the Devourer combo deck. Main deck, pretty stock. Sideboard, we got, you know, the Welders, the Fofs, the Pyroblasts, the Pyroclasms, the Rushing Rivers, the Tormod's Crypts. Again, pretty standard stuff. So nothing here that's gonna make you be like, what's going on? So yeah, this is a typical Devourer list. Okay, and now of course we have again another Bauble Slide list. This one of course just has Lava Dart main deck. I believe this guy plays a Singleton Dart in his decks, typically main deck. But yeah, that's fine. Like at its worth, it's basically a shock more or less. But being able to spread out the damage and instant speed for like 1 mana total is very good. So yeah, it's certainly not a horrible card. It's definitely more like a metagame niche card. So it's very good against certain decks, but it's pretty mediocre otherwise. But again, it's fine. It's fine. You know, like I said, at worst, it's typically shock. So, yep, same stuff with the sideboard. Typical cards. Again, more lava darts against creature-based decks. Overloads, Pyroblast, Pops, all the stuff you're used to seeing. Okay, and now we have Stasis. And this is just Stasis, right? Nothing too weird here. We got the Singleton Boomerang, Singleton Counterspell, bunch of free spells, Arcane Denial, Gush, Daze, Impulse, all sorts of sweet cards. Yeah, so this is basically Stasis with Stasis cards. Love the mana shorts in the sideboard. That's the one that taps their lands and empties their mana pool of all mana. It's blue and 2 colors. It's an instant. Probably should have put this one up on the slide, but yeah, definitely a big fan of mana short. Yeah, propaganda is pretty cool too. Big fan of that against a lot of, well, anything with creatures. One of those is just like very, very tough for them to beat because of like how good it is with stasis. Curse Totem is very important against like Stompy or Elves, things like that. A lot of the combo decks are very, very hit hard, like the Angry Hermit decks or Devour or whatever. Also, do not like to see Curse Totem. So Curse Totem's really definitely a underappreciated card, I would say. Underappreciated. But basically, again, stock list, a lot of good cards, lot of great choices. So good stuff here. Also, the deck name is pretty good. I don't have friends. I mean, this is how, yeah, this is how you can tell you have good friends. They'll let you play like really boring matchups, like the really super highly polarized matchups or whatever. Like, you know, oh, I'm playing Reanimator. Well, oh, I'm playing Elves. Well, I guess I'll die. Anyways, let's move on. Okay, and now we have, well, it's the Rock again, and it's the same thing. This one just has a little bit more mana, but its extra lands are lands that do things. So Volrath Stronghold for recurring stuff, Mishra's Factory for beating down, that kind of stuff. But that's fine, not a big deal. And we have pretty more or less stock again, right? You look at all the spells: Living with Duress, Therapy, blah 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 blah, Balos, Walls, Hermits, Blastoderm, Spheremonger, Natural Life, Smother, Vendetta, the Nightmare. I mean, this is all part of the sort of you know, like the 80 or 90 cards you can play in the Rock, and they're all pretty solid. In the sideboard, we have Bone Shredder as a wishable target for murdering things, more duress against decks that are vulnerable to duress. Dust Bowl to win mainland wars and to disrupt slower decks, that's great. E-Plague against obviously tribal decks. Genesis Masticore against more slower matchups. Yeah, Plague Spitter, Copy Rating for Withered Wretch. These things sort of explain themselves. Why do you play Withered Wretch in your sideboard in your Living Wish deck? Who knows? It's a mystery, right? Almost pointing this stuff out just feels so inane. But yeah, pretty obvious why a lot of this is played. But yeah, good stuff going on here. Yeah, so nothing too surprising. Made 10th place. Good enough for him. Good enough for me. All right, and now we have, well, this is just Sly, and I think this one is, this is pretty close to what I'm playing. Although I think I'm like, instead of the 4 dart, I'm playing like 2 hammer, 2 vortex. I think is the only change, and then of course like, different cards in the, 1 or 2 different cards on the board. But yeah, good list. It's just Sly, so yeah. Yeah, I like it. Nothing too wonky here. Just it's almost the 20-20-20 because you have 20 persistent damage sources, 20 burn spells, and 20 lands, but not quite, not quite. That's okay though. Still pretty good to me. So yeah, it's Sly, burn spells. Okay, and now we have just the Terrageddon deck. It's 5 colors and it plays a lot of different cards. So yeah, Mox Diamond, Tax Rack enable a bunch of different things. We have a bunch of different 5-color lands, Undiscovered Paradise, Gemstone Mine, City of Brass, ton of different cards in the sideboard that you can tutor for with our good friend Enlightened Tutor. So yeah, tons of stuff. Yeah, Gorilla Shaman. Yeah, that guy's pretty sweet. Edict, Ray of Revelation, Duress, Guy's Blessings, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, just a bunch of tutor targets that target different things. Our creature base is a little light for my taste, but we got 4 Werebear, 4 Melee Mage, and 1 Exalted Angel. Again, good beaters. Werebear is just like a Mana Dork and or beater. Melee Mage is obviously very good against the combo decks or control decks. Some control decks, I should say. An Exalted Angel is just pretty sweet in general, although it is very slow, very slow. Pyroclasm, Cataclysm, Armageddon, lots and lots of removal with swords and everything else. So yeah, there's no Terravores in this, from what I can see, but hey, it's kind of Terrageddon. So yeah, this is definitely a pretty ambitious deck. Definitely playing a ton of 5-color stuff. We have 3 Sylvan Library, which is fairly significant. I mean, yeah, so anyways, there's a lot to dissect here. But yeah, this is a deck. This is a deck with a lot of different cards. All right, and now we have, well, this is a Dreadnought deck. We got some Duress, we got some Lindol's Vault, and then we have a bunch of blue cards to help you do that. Yeah, so this is just a blue-black Dreadnought deck. Gosh, Impulse, Stifle, Vision Charm, Foil, all sorts of stuff you'll see typically, days. Good mana base, good sideboard to help you deal with all sorts of stuff. Sickening Dreams is a little uncommon. It's the discard one, deal a bunch of damage, kill creatures, that kind of thing, equal to the number of cards discarded. That one's pretty sweet. A lot more removal sideboard. Vendetta, Perish, E-Plague, Smother, Beb, all that good stuff. So that's pretty sweet. Yeah, so this is definitely a pretty sweet deck. Lots of good stuff going on here. So yeah, not much more to say. Okay, and now we have, well, this is Sly again. We just have basically the same stuff you're used to seeing pretty much anywhere. We have 1 Vortex and 3 Seal of Fire main. I think it's a couple too many shocks, but that's okay. That's not the worst thing in the world, but again, I prefer slightly higher impact cards. Yeah, nothing weird here. Sideboard, main deck, all stuff you're gonna see in a Sly list. You know, some variation. So, yep, good stuff. And this guy got sixth place. All right, and now we have Slide. Again, this is pretty typical list. The main deck, at least, these are all cards you're going to expect to see. You know, just the random cycling cards or whatever you're going to see in an Astral Slide Lightning Rift deck. The only thing that's like really weird and very not good is the Forbidding Watchtower. I'm really not in the market for a bunch of come-to-play tap cards like Forgotten Cave and Secluded Step. You kind of have to play right just to have a critical mass of cycling cards, but Forbidding Watchtower is just not good. I'm not going to pay 2 mana for a 1/5 every turn. Like, what a waste of mana. I'll take my basic lands, please. Yes, thank you. Not good there. And of course, the rest of the main deck looks pretty stock. Rune of Protection maybe looks a little weird, but Rune of Protection, of course, cycles. So let's go with the rest of the deck. I'm not 100% sure about 4 Decree, 4 Slice and Dice. Maybe want like 1 or 2 Wrath of God or something like that. Instead of like the stuff that's a little more specialized, but that's okay. The sideboard's got some really cool stuff though. Again, Pyroblast, this is typically normal, which you'll want to play against a lot of the other blue decks. So yeah, Pyroblast is great there. Again, Thawing Glaciers, same thing. Any mid-range slower deck, Thawing Glaciers is awesome. Argivian Find, especially for people that are boarding in more disenchant effects. Argivian Find gives you a little bit more um, resilience against removal. Curse Totem, very, very good against a ton of different decks, whether they be aggressive decks like Elves or whether they be combo decks like Hermit or something like that. Crypt, pretty obvious what that's for. Seal of Cleansing and Aura of Silence, of course, are just more disenchant effects. Exalted Angel, very good against aggressive decks. Good also against a lot of the control decks, especially with Astral Slide, where you can slide it in and out. Do they keep in the removal? Removal is, again, typically, it's not quote-unquote dead, because I guess you can eventually play an Eternal Dragon. That's extremely slow. So by the time it's like, oh, I can, Swords their Eternal Dragon, they've gotten like a 4 or 5 for 1 off it. Like, this isn't exactly like a good trade for you. So again, the Angel Gambit, big fan of that. Big fan of that. Putting the squeeze on your opponent to, you keep in the bad cards, you put in the good cards. Like, do you just pray that they don't draw it? That kind of stuff. And of course, Chroma's Vengeance. This is just additional wraths against decks that they're good against. It's a cycles. It's also good against the mid-range decks that play a bunch of like dumb artifacts and enchantments. So this hits a wide variety of decks. So Chroma's Vengeance, great here. I actually really, really like a Chroma's Vengeance, and feel pretty dumb for not thinking of that earlier, playing it in the sideboard, because this is like, in some respects, Premodern is feeling a little bit like Onslaught block constructed a little bit, but in other ways not. So anyways, a lot of really good stuff here. So yeah, there you go. All right, this is Elves. This has all the typical elf cards. I think they might be 1 land lighter than what Elves typically plays. This one also has Winter Orb too, in addition to Tangle Wire. Very strong against the control decks, or anything sort of more mana hungry. So yeah, Winter Orb very good there. Sideboard, we got Sharpshooter, got Elvish Champion, got Mastercore. Got a lot of good stuff in the sideboard. Got Null Rod against all the combo decks. Naturalize, yeah, real good stuff here. Real good stuff here. All right, and same thing. Basically, we got Elves again, and Wall Blossoms in this deck instead of, or I should say, in order to sort of hedge against the aggressive decks to block their stuff, but also to draw a card and keep up on board. You got Tempting Worm. Tempting Worm's pretty sweet. Tempting Worm is only good versus some decks, like obviously any deck with a bunch of permanents. You're going to really regret casting Tempting Worm, but decks without a ton of permanents, Tempting Worm is very sweet, being a 2 mana 5/5 and all, so yeah. But again, pretty typical Elves list. Again, we'll see a little bit of different preferences in the sideboards for these Elves decks, but that's okay. That's okay. That's interesting. And if you can believe it, another Elves deck, and this one in the sideboard, we got Winter Orb. Oh boy, even more Winter Orbs. And this one also plays Biorhythm main deck, which, again, some of these decks tend to do. You can literally win the game for 8 mana if you play it right at the right time. Obviously, if your opponent has no creatures, they just die. So that's pretty sweet. Sharpshooter, Elves Champion, Well-Wisher, yada yada yada. The same kind of stuff you're sort of used to seeing. 17 lands instead of 18. Again, typical stuff. Most of these Elves lists are pretty stock, with the exception of the sideboard. So, but nothing too wonky here though. A lot of really good stuff, and so yeah, 3 elf decks in a row. Can we make it 4 elf decks in a row? No, it's actually just Parfait. Just the deck that preys on that kind of stuff. Yeah, this guy playing main deck Duress. very sweet. Who doesn't like main deck duress? Definitely a very good card against the control decks or the combo decks. And then, of course, the Ancestors Chosen Shard Phoenix Oath package is pretty sweet. Obviously, Shard Phoenix is basically impossible for aggro decks to beat. Most aggro decks, anyways. Same thing with Ancestors Chosen. The card's pretty sweet. So yeah, nothing too strange in the main deck. Pretty much just a parfait list, plain Oath. Nothing wonky here. You got Sylvan Libraries, additional sources of card advantage, Aura of Silence, which is just great, Seal of Cleansing, E-Plague, the whole 9 yards. Sideboard, same thing, nothing too weird. Although we do have an Acroma, which I'm guessing is a card that will be oathed up. Although I guess, I mean, shit, I guess this deck can hardcast it at some point, right? But yeah, you can oath up an Acroma, so that's always cool. Big fan of that. So yeah, this is the deck that won. Again, not super surprising. Parfait, an extremely powerful deck, a very strong deck, a very difficult deck to play. Definitely one that will leave you feeling pretty tired, pretty fatigued at the end. A lot of mental strain, mental load. Like choice paralysis. All these different, like for example, tutors are really strong, right? Things like land tax, right, being a sort of tutor, enlightened tutor, obviously being a tutor, but also when you combine it with things like scroll rack and windswept teeth to shuffle away your deck, and then you get sylvan library, so you have all these different variables of like all these different cards you can see every turn, and it's can be very taxing on you mentally. So that's definitely one of the downsides to a deck like this. It's so difficult to play in longer tournaments. It's definitely why I've typically avoided this archetype, just because, well, it's a little passive, obviously, which is a problem, but it's also like drains your brain. But you do get to play answers to more or less anything in any color. But anyways, so that's it for today, guys. So this was the Premodern European Championships. This was the deck that won out of 124 players. I think this is this the one that was the biggest Premodern Championship? Anyways, good tech. Look at this duress, very cool duress. Parfait is a pretty sweet deck. So yeah, this isn't too surprising. But anyway, so yeah, thanks for stopping by, guys, and have a great day.